0945 local time, Iranian Air Defense Command, west of Tehran. The Bavar 373 console went black before the operator finished his sentence. He was reading out a track. Bearing 270, altitude unknown, speed unknown. The system that Iran spent 15 years building to defeat fifth-generation stealth aircraft was looking at the Western approach and seeing nothing the way it was supposed to see something. He calls his supervisor over. The supervisor looks at the screen, then looks at the secondary display, then looks at the radar feed from the next battery up the coast. All three are blank. In the same minute, 60 kilometers east, the Pasteur district in Tehran loses power to 3 buildings simultaneously. Khamenei's residence is one of them. The roof is gone. The floor below the roof is gone. The wall facing west is a hole. There was no warning, no incoming missile track, no aircraft on Iranian radar in the entire western corridor. 200 kilometers further west, an F-35 Adir is already turning for home. The pilot never went feet dry into Iranian airspace. He launched a standoff missile from outside Iran's border, watched the impact on his sensor fusion display, and is now climbing back to cruise altitude before the first Iranian fighter command even understands a strike has happened. The aircraft Iran trained 15 years to shoot down has just hit the residence of Iran's supreme leader, and Iran's air defense operators are still staring at black screens. The duty officer at the Western Air Defense Sector picks up the secure line to Tehran. He has nothing to report because he has nothing on his screen to report. By the time he finishes the call, the second wave is already inbound. He will not see that one either. 1100 hours. Nevatim Air Base, Israel, the second wave is already on the taxiway. 3 squadrons, 116, 117, 140, the Lions of the South. The first jet, the Golden Eagle 45 F-35I Adirs spread across 3 operational squadrons, and most of them are about to fly into Iranian airspace today. This is the first day of Operation Roaring Lion. By sunset, the Israeli Air Force will release more than 1,200 munitions in 24 hours, the largest combat sortie in IAF history. 500 military targets across western and central Iran hit on day 1. Iran's Bavar 373 operators will spend the next 3 weeks learning that the F-35I they are tracking is not the F-35 the rest of the world flies. It is something else. Something Israel rebuilt, specifically to hunt Iran. The standoff missile suite. To understand what hit Tehran that morning, you need to understand what Israel put on the wing of the F-35I. The standard F-35A, flown by other air forces, carries a known weapons load, JDA-MIS small diameter bombs, AMRAA sidewinders. Every operator from the United States to South Korea to Japan to the United Kingdom flies the same configuration. Israel does not. Israel is the only F-35 operator in the world permitted to integrate indigenous weapons onto the airframe. Lockheed Martin built the aircraft. Israel rebuilt the weapons bay around its own missiles. 5 of those missiles flew into Iran during the opening strikes. Rampage, air-launched, derived from a guided artillery rocket. Roughly 150 kilograms of multi-purpose warhead, range between 150 and 250 kilometers, quasi-ballistic flight profile, anti-jamming guidance, built to defeat the exact electronic countermeasures Russian-designed air defense systems use to spoof incoming weapons. The Rampage was photographed on the wing of an F-16I Sufa during the campaign, released by the IDF itself, alongside beyond visual range Slammer air-to-air missiles and 600-gallon external fuel tanks for deep strike profiles. ROCKS, air-launched ballistic missile, designed to penetrate hardened targets, released from outside enemy SAM range, falls on its target from a trajectory the defending radar struggles to engage. The trajectory is the point. A ballistic descent profile is harder to intercept than a cruise missile flight path, and the ROCKS arrives on the target with kinetic energy that adds to the warhead's effect. AR LoRa, air-launched variant of Israel's LoRa quasi-ballistic missile, long-range precision, designed to be released by an aircraft that never enters the threat envelope of the system it is targeting. Blue Sparrow, originally a target, Missile, repurposed as a strike weapon, mimics a ballistic missile profile on hostile radar, confusing the air defense picture while real strikes go in. Golden Horizon, the heaviest of the suite, aeroballistic, used against high-value targets when the warhead and the trajectory both have to do work the others cannot. Per Future Warfare magazine analysis of the opening strikes, Golden Horizon is the missile that hit Khamenei's residence in the Pasteur district. The full suite, Rampage, Rox, Air Laura, Blue Sparrow, Golden Horizon, is a combination most foreign analysts had never seen deployed together in operational combat. Until February 28th, that is the first half of the answer. The second half is why none of these missiles were intercepted. Iran's primary air defense is the S-300PM U-2 and the domestically built Bavar 373. The S-300PM U-2 was sold to Iran by Russia and is the same family of system China, India, Algeria, and a half-dozen other states operate. The Bavar 373 is Iran's indigenous version, built specifically because Iran believed Russian systems would not be enough to stop a fifth-generation strike. Both systems share a problem when the attacker is the F-35I. The aircraft never enters their engagement envelope. The S-300 PMU-2 has a published engagement range of around 200 kilometers against most aerodynamic targets, less against low observable platforms. The Bavar 373 is comparable. Both systems are built to engage aircraft that fly into the radar bubble, get tracked, and get shot. The F-35I never flies into the bubble. It releases Rampage from 150 kilometers out, Rox from further, Air Laura from further still. The aircraft is already turning before the missile reaches its target, and the missile is descending on a trajectory the S-300 was not optimized to engage. That is the geometry Iran cannot solve. The Bavar 373 was Iran's answer to this problem, built domestically. Designed specifically for fifth-generation threats, Iran tested it against simulated stealth profiles for years. On paper, it was the system that closed the gap. In practice, it never saw what hit Tehran. Now layer the second problem on top of the first. According to Times of Israel reporting, Iranian S-300 and S-400 air defense systems were effectively blinded in the opening hours of the campaign by coordinated cyber intrusions attributed to Israel's Unit 8-200 and the United States National Security Agency. A drone swarm package, described in published Israeli analysis as a scorpion strike formation, overwhelmed radar installations, and saturated sensor grids along Iran's western approaches. Israeli pilots used the natural contours of the Zagros mountain range to remain beneath radar detection thresholds. Within 15 minutes of strike commencement, Iran's integrated air defense network was reportedly in disarray. So put the picture together. Iran's radar is blinded by cyber. Iran's sensor grid is saturated by drones. Iran's interceptors are looking in the wrong direction. The F-35I is approaching from terrain that masks its already minimal radar return, and the missile that is going to do the work has been released from outside the engagement envelope of the system that is supposed to stop it. By the time a Bavar 373 operator sees anything, the missile has already impacted. That is why the console went black. It was never going to show him anything else. The ghost weapon reveals 0945 local time. Pasteur District, Tehran. The first impact registers as a building collapse. The second impact is 12 seconds later. The third is 28 seconds after that. 3 Golden Horizon aeroballistic warheads delivering on 3 separate addresses in the Pasteur district, the IRGC Nerve Center and Senior Leadership Residence Zone, within 40 seconds of each other. There was no aircraft on radar. There is no aircraft on radar after the impact either. The F-35 that delivered the targeting cue is already 200 kilometers west of Iranian airspace, descending toward Israeli territory. That is the first piece of what Iran is dealing with. There are 2 more. The F-35I Adir is not the F-35A flown by the United States Air Force. It is not the F-35B flown by the Royal Air Force. It is not the F-35C flown by U.S. carrier wings. Per Aeroflap analysis and the National Security Journal, the Israeli Air Force took the Lockheed Martin F-35A and modified it more. aggressively than any other operator in the program. Israeli-developed electronic warfare systems, indigenous command and control integration, Israeli weapons compatibility. The IDF calls the resulting concept FBE/A-RC-E-AWACS-35. That is shorthand for an aircraft that is supposed to be one platform doing the job of 5: fighter, bomber, electronic warfare aircraft, reconnaissance, and AWACS. A single F-35 in the air over Iran is a strike aircraft, an electronic attack aircraft, a sensor node, and a command and control hub at the same time. Top speed Mach 1.6. The Israeli design philosophy is not raw speed. It is the ambush predator profile. Stealth, sensor fusion, situational awareness. The aircraft sees first, shoots first, leaves before the enemy understands what was in the air. 3 operational squadrons, all based at Nevatim. As of June 2025, Israel had received 45 of the 75 F-35 is on order. That is the second piece. The third piece is the part Iran cannot solve with a Russian air defense system. When Lockheed Martin builds an F-35A for export, the customer gets a known configuration, software locked, hardware locked. The Pentagon controls what goes on the airframe and what comes off it. Israel is the only F-35 operator in the world that does not operate under that restriction. Israel was permitted, under the original program structure, to integrate its own electronic warfare suite, its own weapons, and its own command and control architecture. Per the National Security Journal, Israel took the US-made F-35 and made it into a perfect weapon for combat use in the Middle East. That is not a marketing line. That is the operational reality of what is in the air over Iran. When a Bavar 373 battery activates against an Israeli F-35I, the radar return it is trying to track is shaped by Israeli electronic warfare, the signature Israel decided to project, the countermeasures Israel decided to deploy. The targeting data fusion happening in the cockpit is running on Israeli code against Israeli mission planning, supported by Israeli intelligence, most of it built specifically for engagements against Iran. The aircraft Lockheed Martin built, Israel rebuilt. 17 other nations fly F-35s. None of them fly this one. Now run all 3 pieces simultaneously and look at what Iran's air defense operators were facing. Standoff missiles released from outside their engagement envelope. Rampage, Rox, Air Laura, Blue Sparrow, Golden Horizon. 5 different missile profiles arriving on different trajectories. Some quasi-ballistic, some aero-ballistic, some mimicking ballistic missile signatures. No single intercept geometry solves all 5. A delivery aircraft they cannot reliably detect, flying terrain masked behind the Zagros range, projecting a radar signature shaped by Israeli electronic warfare. A radar and sensor network already blinded by coordinated cyber operations from Unit 8200 and the NSA, and saturated by a Scorpion strike drone swarm hitting the western approaches at the same moment. There is no sequence Iran's air defense doctrine had for this combination. Engage the missile and the aircraft is already gone. Engage the aircraft and the radar cannot find it. Restore the radar and the cyber intrusion is still inside the system. Bring up the backup site and the drone swarm is already on it. Every countermeasure Iran built was calibrated for one threat profile. The Ghost weapon arrived with 3 simultaneously, and the IDF released the announcement at 10:30 in the morning on a Wednesday. An Israeli F-35 I had just shot down an Iranian YA-130, per Jerusalem Post. The F-35's first manned combat air-to-air kill. The same day, RAF-35Bs operating out of Jordan recorded their own first confirmed combat kill against an Iranian drone. The aircraft Iran trained 15 years to shoot down was now the aircraft scoring kills inside Iranian airspace. The shoot-down lie. While Israeli F-35s were striking 500 targets across western and central Iran, Iranian state media was running a different story. In June 2025, IRNA and Tasnim news agency claimed Iran had shot down 2 F-35s on the 13th and a third on the 14th. They claimed to have captured a female Israeli pilot. The IDF rejected each claim as fabricated. Per the national interest, the Iranian proof included poorly photoshopped images, one of news. The photos showed an F-35 the size of a B-52 bomber. In February 2026, Iran ran the same play again. New claims, new photos, same denial from the IDF per Defense Security Asia. The only confirmed F-35 class incident during the entire campaign was a March 19th emergency landing by a U.S. Air Force F-35A that reportedly took fire. CENTCOM has not confirmed the cause. No F-35 has been confirmed lost in combat. This is not a side note. This is doctrine. If you cannot shoot down the aircraft, claim you did. Force the enemy to spend cycles refuting you. Build a domestic narrative that the shoot-downs happened. Make the kill exist on Iranian state media even when it never existed in the air. It is the only counter Iran has left, and it is not slowing down a single sortie. Every time Iran posts a fabricated shoot-down, the IDF posts another strike video. Every time IRNA runs a captured pilot story, Nevatim launches the next wave. The information war Iran is running in Persian is bouncing off a kinetic war Israel is winning in Farsi airspace. The lie does not bring the aircraft down. It does not save the radar site. It does not put Khamenei's residents back together. It only buys a domestic narrative. And the cost of that narrative is that the next time Iran's audience sees the F-35I, it is on a target Iran failed to defend. By March 21, 2026, per Alma Research and Education Center, Israeli officials assess that 80 to 85% of Iran's air defense architecture has been destroyed. Radars, interceptors, detection systems, approximately 5,700 combat sorties flown, more than 540 strike waves conducted, 1,200 munitions released in the first 24 hours alone, the largest combat sortie in Israeli Air Force history, 500 military targets struck on day one across western and central Iran. 3 operational F-35II squadrons running. 0 F-35 is confirmed lost in combat. The S-300PM U-2 batteries Russia sold to Iran degraded. The Bavar 373 system Iran built domestically to defeat 5th-generation aircraft degraded. The aircraft those systems were specifically designed to defeat, flying without confirmed losses. This is the most significant test of 5th-generation stealth versus modern integrated air defense in combat history. Iran's air defense network is the closest analog available to what Russian and Chinese-supplied systems would look like in a future high-end conflict. Per Fastest Planes analysis, the campaign will be studied by military strategists for decades as the moment 5th-generation air power came of age. Every shot, every intercept attempt, every blinded radar is now data-shaping export decisions, force structure, and adversary planning for a generation. There is one more detail Opity is connecting. Per FDD analysis, on March 19th, 80 to 85% destroyed means 15 to 20% remains. TWZ has consistently warned that even for the F-35 there are risks, especially as the air campaign moves toward direct attacks. Iran retains road-mobile air defenses and manpads that can pop up virtually anywhere. The cost of winning is not measured in lost aircraft. It is measured in the operational caution every sortie still requires. The same stealth profile, the same electronic warfare support, the same mission planning that opened the campaign. The aircraft is undefeated. The pilots fly every mission like it isn't. That is the real cost. Resolution and forward threat. 80 to 85% of Iran's air defense architecture destroyed. 5,700 sorties flown. 540 strike waves conducted. The S-300PMU-2 degraded. The Bavar 373 degraded. The radars Iran spent 15 years calibrating against 5th-generation stealth gone. Khamenei's residence in the Pasteur district hit on day one by a missile delivered from an aircraft Iran's radar never saw. The F-35I Adir flew the opening strikes. It flew the follow-on waves. It scored the first manned combat air-to-air kill in F-35 history. It returned every aircraft to base. Now the forward threat. The data from this campaign is not going to stay in Tehran. Iran's air defense operators kept logs. Iran's allies will receive those logs. Russia will study them. China will study them. Every state that operates an S-300 family system or builds something like the Bavar 373 will study how their architecture failed against the F-35I. The next iteration of Russian and Chinese air defense is being shaped by this campaign right now. Every gap they find in the Israeli profile becomes a feature in the next system. The F-35, I won this round. The aircraft is undefeated against the threat it was sent to destroy. The next aircraft, the one that will face the system Russia and China build off this data, is being designed somewhere right now, and it will fly into a radar picture this campaign created. Iran built S-300s to defeat the F-35. Israel rebuilt the F-35 to defeat the S-300s. The S-300s are gone.